Obviously a lot of attention for your article this morning. What would
Yeah.
you say is the main point that you're trying to make about your party?
I just think that, in current circumstances, we are at a difficult point in this country. Brexit is a huge challenge, and the one thing we can't do is lose credibility or integrity. I think, people who voted for us expect us to do a job. We are their servants as politicians, and I think it's key to remember that. We need to support Theresa May and get this job done, deliver on Brexit, and move on to what's after that.
So is Theresa May, are you still supporting her as your leader?
Absolutely, and it says that in the article. I support her to the hilt. I don't really know where this stuff's come from about not supporting her, but I've always said about Theresa, I want her to take the reins off and really, let's get on with it and deliver an agenda of progressive reform around social justice and things like that the country wants us to. And the whole premise of this is because if Jeremy Corbyn gets into power, this country will be irrevocably changed and we won't be forgiven for quite some time. So that's the whole premise of it. It's been picked up in different ways through sort of, headlines and that. But that's the press, that's the game I'm in, and that's fine as well.
You're one of those rare Conservatives who had a marginal seat ahead of the election in June, increased their majority, now looks a much safer seat. You're also very clear to your constituents about what you come here to fight for. There are a lot of negative headlines about this place recently. How do you find that, considering you're very clear about what your aims are?
Yeah, so this is the whole point of it, really, is that in seats like mine, you have to go back at weekends, and you're on the doors every weekend, and you have to retain that credibility and that integrity. And if you were to go out there and defend some of the indefensible, particularly around the sexual harassment stuff, people will start to say to you, well, Johnny, we voted for you because we think you've got your head screwed on properly. We don't agree with everything, but we think you're going to represent us properly and you're honest and you'll do your best. And I think if we start losing credibility around some of these issues and don't demonstrate leadership, I'm letting them down, and that's not something I'm prepared to do. I want to retain my seat. I believe in everything we're doing in Plymouth. It's an exciting time and I will fight for it.
You're one of the newer generation of MPs, one of the younger MPs as well. Do you think it's time that within the Conservative Party, your age group, your generation were being pulled up the ranks, so to speak?
I do think that there is immense talent in the 2015-2017 intakes, as there is before that. This idea that we don't have any talent in the party is simply not the case. We have some struggles in the cabinet at the moment, and I think everybody can see that. But look, I fundamentally believe that this is not a hard left country who want Jeremy Corbyn in power. They're also not a hard right country. They want a progressive centre-right government. We have the people who can deliver that. And yes, I'd love to see them in positions where they could implement it as well, so that we can continue the change that we're making in places like Plymouth.
Just to touch on the sexual harassment stuff that has been obviously dominating the headlines from this place, you're angry at people who are justifying some of the examples we've heard about. Are you?
Well, I think it's just frankly ridiculous that you can say that 10, 15 years ago it was okay to touch someone until they threatened to physically assault you to leave them alone. That has never been okay. I don't think it's a sort of age generation thing. I think it's an establishment thing, a sort of sense of entitlement that people saw during the election, the expenses scandal. And I think, we need to, the law is very clear where people have broken the law, particularly around employment law and things like that, then we should deal with it. But a lot of, what has been said has not crossed that threshold. There's no interest to me or my constituents. But we set the example here. And yes, I think we need to be honest about what has gone on and move on in a much better direction.
You've been very clear about how you feel during this interview and obviously in the article as well. Is this a pitch for future leadership? You're certainly getting your name mentioned a lot more around here of late.
No, it's not a pitch for future leadership. Look, Theresa May is the right person to do it. She can do a really good job. She can deliver. She's just won an election with the highest portion of the vote that we've had in a long time. So she can deliver a progressive reform. But I do think, politics is a team game, and those of us in that team need to play a role. And, this is my contribution to that.